My name's Robbie Meehan and I'm a geologist, and I am on the Park Esker, which is about midway between Clonberne and Glenamaddy in northeast Galway. So the Park Esker. Esker itself is an Irish word. It means a high ridge that separates two plains, and we have low ground to my right. We also have low ground to my left, and we're on a high upstanding ridge. The ridge itself is about 15 metres higher than the surrounding ground. And the esker itself, the feature, is a long linear feature, a long linear ridge of sand and gravel. And this esker itself starts about 5 kilometres north of here, and it extends tens of kilometres southwards, almost to Galway city, right the way through mid-county Galway. And many of the Irish eskers are along that sense of scale. They're several tens of kilometres long. Probably our most famous esker is the Esker Riada, which stretches across southern County Galway, from West Galway right across the country to County Dublin. And that's over 200 kilometres long. So the esker is made up of sands and gravels, which we can see here at my feet. We can see it here as the subsoil forming the feature to my left also. And those sands and gravels, they're rounded. They've been washed by water. And how the esker was deposited was at the end of the Ice Age. Ireland was covered by ice, several hundred metres of ice. And as that ice retreated, billions and billions of gallons of meltwater was released. So the ice melted, but it melted in a very orderly fashion, and the meltwater was concentrated in almost like caves at the base of the ice. And these caves conducted the water towards the ice margin at the front of the ice sheet. And within those caves, sands and gravels that were washed by the water within the subglacial rivers were actually deposited. And they were stacked up. So when the ice melted around them, what's left then are these high, dry ridges of sand and gravel, which show effectively the course of the former river at the base of the ice. And from above, from a satellite, you can actually see that the eskers are sinuous, they're winding, just like a river would be nowadays. So the roundedness of the sands and gravels, the gravel materials themselves, that also shows that it's been washed by water, it's been cleansed, and it's been worn by water over hundreds and maybe thousands of years as it was deposited. The eskers are unique also in that the soils that form on them are very shallow. They're a thin mat of organic material, only a few centimetres thick. And when you consider that the sides of the eskers are very, very steep, these would never have been ploughed. So the grasslands on the eskers are ancient grasslands, and they're actually refuges for ancient wildlife in a sense, in that there's a unique flora and fauna that grows on the eskers on these very shallow soils that are in the majority alkaline, because the sand and gravels are formed from limestone, which is the bedrock within this region and within most of the Irish Central Midlands. So we have unique flora. We have very rare flowers, similar to some of the ones that are found in the Burren. We have orchids. We also have a unique fauna within the eskers, because rabbits will burrow within the eskers, badgers will burrow. They're refuges for wildlife because they're high, they're dry, and if you want to burrow a home in the subsurface, this is the type of material that you want to burrow into. It's also easy to actually scratch away and to build your burrow network. And then finally, in terms of our history, the eskers are important because there were ancient roadways. Much of the Midlands of Ireland is covered by bog, extensive tracts of bogland, which was very marshy, very, very wet, and very difficult to cross in historical times. But the eskers actually weave their way through those bogs. And that means they formed high, dry ridges that allowed the construction of ancient roadways and ancient pathways. And perhaps our most famous esker, like I mentioned, the esker that stretches across the country, that actually goes through Clonmacnoise and was called the Pilgrim Path in that locality. So we have a myriad of features that are important in terms of the eskers, in terms of their deposition, in terms of what they tell us about the ice sheet, in terms of the history of the soils, and in terms of the biodiversity associated with them, the flora and the fauna. And also even in terms of our ancient infrastructure. That mirrors to a greater or lesser extent the pattern of the eskers in the landscape. So as an educational resource, there's none better, and there are many of these across the lowlands of County Galway, and they're the type of places you want to go to and get out and walk around and explore.